burning down pretty good now. Just wasted all this time and effort. Let's give this another shot. Hello, welcome back to another episode from Pale Horse Survival and Tactical. I'm Bill. I'm glad you could join me. Today we're going to work on a rawhide bow drill cordage. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. I'm going to make a rawhide bow drill cord today, and we're just going to do a simple two-strand twist. I have a piece of rawhide here. It's actually a scrap left over from a project that I was working on, I think last year. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a spiral cut, and we only need about probably about 6 foot of cordage, and then we're going to stretch it and twist it, stretch it, and allow it to dry. So we'll go ahead and prepare this. Let's see what we'll do. We'll cut this piece off here. Save those scraps for later. I'll make some hide glue out of these, out of the pieces. So we're going to round the edges off here. So we'll go ahead and cut this edge off here. We have a storm inbound coming in, so might get a little bit of snow. I'm hoping to get some some video shooting in before the storm hits. Pretty decent size, and we have a lot of fresh powder up here. About 2 foot of snow fell from the last storm that we just got. Alright, so this is what we have so far. Work on the other side here. Paracord makes a really good, excuse me, really good bow drill cordage, and it lasts for quite some time. Rawhide also makes a really good cordage for this purpose. We have some guys target shooting, so you're probably going to hear some gunshots. Some guys showed up to do some shooting. They're back down the trail a ways. Okay, so this is what we have. And I'll show you how I process. I try to use my knife for many different purposes. I've just gotten into that habit, and it's just less things for me to carry. I am a minimalist for the most part. So what we're going to do here is, I'm just going to baton my knife into the stump here. Just like that. This is where a good full tang knife comes in handy. You can use it for so many different purposes. Now what we're going to do here is, this is how I usually cut. You can use scissors if you want. I'm just demonstrating how I do it personally. You don't have to obviously do it like this. And if you do it this way, be mindful that you can cut yourself pretty easily. So what we're going to do is, we're going to cut this about 1/4 of an inch wide. A little thicker is better than too thin, and you want to keep your cordage more or less of an even width. It doesn't have to be exact, but you don't want like really fat sections. Really fat areas and then really thin. And if you go really thin, if you waver and go really thin with it, that'll be a weak spot in your cordage. A fellow primitive of mine, really good bushcrafter named Josh, used the term Mother Nature's paracord recently to describe rawhide cordage. So it's really tough. It will, if it gets soaked in water long enough, it will soften. That is one downside. And this really doesn't take very long. Before you know it, you have a pretty good size piece of cordage. This is why we round the edges, whether you're cutting with a knife or using scissors. It's much easier to follow that radius if it's round. If it was square, it just wouldn't work as good. So we get about 6 foot of cordage. We're going to double it over in half. Twist it till it's nice and tight, stretch it, and then tie it off. So we have a cut right here. I want to go a little wide on that. That's going to be a weak spot. And a piece of rawhide of this size can produce quite a bit of cordage. I wouldn't be amazed, or I wouldn't be surprised if we could easily get 20 foot out of this. I have to stretch my legs. Legs are getting cramped up. So I think you guys get the idea here. I'm going to go ahead and pause the filming and continue on this until I get the needed length. We already have a respectable amount of cordage here. We had that little cut right it's here somewhere. Here it is. I don't like that. That's a weak spot. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut that off, since I've got enough rawhide here. That being a split, I don't want my cordage to break, so I'll just save this. It's probably about 1.5 feet of cordage here, and I'll just save that for something else. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting this out, and I'll be right back. Stay tuned. Alright, I think we're good. So we'll just terminate this by tapering it off just like that. Still have this much rawhide left. You can get an amazing amount of cordage out of a small piece. So this is what we have, and this is about 7 foot of cordage probably. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to double it over just like that. Stretch it, not enough to break it. Rawhide's pretty tough, but if you pull too hard on it, it'll break. So the reason why we're going to stretch, and then when we twist and then stretch it again and then stake it out, that way when it dries it's already pre-stretched, and when you're using it as a bow drill cordage and it's under tension, it'll stretch a lot less on you. You may have to readjust, then again you may not, the length of your cordage on your bow, and we're going to get into that later in the video. So this is what we have, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate how to, and I'm not going to leave this up here obviously, but I'll go ahead and demonstrate how to hook it on something and then twist it. And I'm going to take this home and finish it up at home, and then I'll conclude the video back up here at another time when we'll attach this to a bow and use it to spin an ember with the bow drill. So stay tuned. Okay. I have the cordage here. So you just join the two ends together. Come up and find your loop here. You can just find a little branch sticking off the end, and when this dries it'll have a loop. This will leave a loop, and that loop we'll use to slide over the end of our bow for the bow drill. So that'll be probably just about the right size here. I'm going to take a toggle. You can sharpen that into a stake. Pull the bark off. And just attach this with a single overhand. Just like that. And then you stretch it. Don't pull it till you break it. You want to put a decent little amount of tension on this, and then you just twist it. And once it's twisted up nice and tight like a bowstring, and obviously if I was going to stake this out I would have picked a little nub sticking out closer to the ground, so like there's one down here below. It's probably out of camera shot. That way when I stretch it I can reach the ground. I can't reach the ground. This is for demonstration purposes, but you want to be mindful of that. That way when it's twisted up then you can just take it and stretch it out and then drive your stake into the ground and then just leave it until it's dry. This is going to make a nice bow drill cordage. Real nice, actually. A little tension on it. And that's all there is to it. Got a nice twist on here. Go ahead and pull the camera over here. It's a nice twist. And this end here, you would, as you put tension on it, you'd drive that into the ground to hold it, and just leave it till it's dry and hard. So I'll go ahead and allow this to dry back home, and I'll conclude this video at another date. Come back and we'll go ahead and attach this to a bow and spin an ember up. So stay tuned. I shall return. Hello, welcome back. I have good news. I'm back in my base camp, finally, after 5 months. Still some snow here, but was able to get in, and it feels good. It's like returning home. I have a lot of resources here. My other spot that I've been going to, didn't really care for it. It was an adoptive spot. It was okay. I was able to shoot some video, but too many people. Just too many people up there. So this is my usual location, and literally it was like returning home. Yeah, the familiar sounds, and I'm familiar with every square inch of this location and the surrounding area. So, but I have a ton of resources here, so now I can begin on some more ambitious projects as we move forward this year. But anyways, this is the bowstring for the bow drill, and it's dry, obviously. I cut the sticks that it was originally attached to. This was the original branch. That's the loop. So I just cut it off the tree. It's a dead branch. And this is one that I used as a stake. I just tied that around with a half hitch. And then that was twisted and then driven in the ground at home. And then this one was attached to something, and I kept a decent tension on it while it dried. And stretching it and drying it in that manner, as we discussed previously, minimizes the stretching of the cord later on when we're using it as a bow drill. We may have to adjust it a time or two as it breaks in, but it'll drastically eliminate a lot of that. So anyways, what we're going to do is I'm going to cut the stick, remove the loops from either end, and gather up some tinder, and in preparation for a fire. So I'm going to be cooking some lunch up here, some more caveman steak, and I guess I'll include you guys in on that as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and gather up some tinder, get this thing prepared, and I might even run this over a dead smooth branch. There's a couple of them around here, and in order to kind of break this in a little bit so it's just a little bit more flexible, so we can loop it around a spindle. I guess it's not doing too bad, but I might run it over a branch just a few times, buff it back and forth. Actually, I'll probably do that before I take the sticks off. These will act as toggles to hold on to while we do that, and just a little bit to break it in slightly. And then we'll go ahead and attach this to a bow and get ready to spin an ember and get a fire going. And then I've got another episode that I'm shooting while I'm up here as well. So with that said, let's get going. And that really helps to kind of break things down a little bit, makes it a lot more flexible. You can actually work rawhide down. To break those fibers, you can really almost work it down to where it's almost like leather. Not quite, but... And I think that's probably all we need to do. I don't want to put too much wear on the cord before we have a chance to use it. I found a dead stick that has a decent curve to it, and I like my bows to have a little bit of a curve. And this is just about ideal here. And I went ahead and notched an end, and another notch up here. So what we're going to do is, I just noticed we have some little nubs sticking off here. Go ahead and clean those up a little bit so we don't have anything catching on stuff while we're trying to spin an ember. Take the loop, or preformed loop, we'll just stick it right over on the top here. Now getting the length, it's better to have it, excuse me, it's better to have it a little too tight than too loose. I usually make my spindles roughly the thickness of my thumb. So I'll just use my thumb as a gauge here. And it can always be adjusted if need be. So we're looking at about I have it marked with my thumb here. Wrap this on. Just attaching this with a single overhand. There we go. Pop another one in here. Just to be safe. This side here will come off when there's slack, so it just gets slid back over the end like that. Hopefully it's not too tight. Might work. That'll account for a little bit of, make up for a little bit of stretching as well, so I think that'll probably work. Okay, so we'll just gather up some tinder, and I'll get my my possibles bag over here, and we'll get ready to give this a shot. Stick it up here away from the wet ground. Burning in a new hole on the hearth board. This one's pretty close to the edge. Whoops. This one's pretty close to the edge and going to blow out, so I'm going to go ahead and cut a notch, and we'll be right back. Alright, got a notch cut in here. It's kind of cleaning up the fuzz. You want a nice clean notch, and then we're going to chamfer the edges here. This gives the coal a little bit more breathing area. I want to give it a little room to breathe and spread its wings. I harvested scouted around for a welcome mat, and I harvested a poison oak leaf. You know you're a real bushcrafter when you use a poison oak leaf as a welcome mat. That's kind of the secret rite of passage not very many people are aware of. I snugged up the bowstring. It did stretch a little bit on the burn end. So I snugged it here, and I just slid this loop off the end, and I twisted it just the same manner that you would use to shorten a bowstring on a bow that shoots arrows. So I just twisted it. That's why we have a little kink in here, but it's not going to hurt anything. And it seemed to work pretty good. It was a convenient way of taking up the slack instead of untying this knot down on the bottom. See, and when you get tension on it, it straightens right out. It's actually not too bad. Another reason why I like a bow with a curve, you'll notice when I use the bow drill for primitive fire making, which is almost 100% of the time, at least 99%, I hold the bow like this, and then my thumb's always on the string. So as I'm bowing towards the end, when I really start cranking on it to bring that combustion temperature up, to ignite the char, I push in with my thumb. This is the value of having a curved stick. And as you push in, you're going to put more tension on the string. So if it starts to slip on you during the heat of the action, you can always just push in. Alright, let's see what kind of damage. Well, that worked out pretty good. The cordage did start to slip on me right towards the end, and I had to utilize that squeeze technique in order to get the char to kick off. And it's not a poison oak leaf, that's a manzanita leaf. We have lots of manzanita out here on the west coast. And the leaf petiole makes a nice little handle for picking up the leaf with the coal on it. This is manzanita here. It's a big dead manzanita branch. You can see the rust-colored bark. That's indicative of manzanita. Native people would make pipes out of this for smoking, and it also makes very ornate walking sticks. One characteristic of manzanita is it burns very hot, extremely hot. So hot, in fact, that it can melt aluminum cookware in a campfire if you're using that as a fuel source. And it works good in very damp conditions if you really need that heat to get a fire going. It's a good characteristic of it. And the red bark, that's tannins, a high tannin content, so you can extract tannins from that just by simmering it in water. Tannins have a variety of uses in primitive living. But anyways, went pretty good. We'll go ahead and take a look at the bow and go ahead and conclude things. Stay tuned. Okay, here's the bow. And you can see the cordage. The fibers broke down a little bit. Whoops, where'd you go? There we go. Sorry about that, guys. But I would say this cord would be good. Rough estimate, could probably spin, from the looks of it, I would say it could probably get another, I don't know, rough estimate, anywhere from 6 to maybe 10 more embers out of this before it would need to be replaced. It's not bad for natural materials. Scouting around my camp, there's one of my old tongs from the fork of a fir tree. Found that out here. I've got a lot of resources, things laying around that I forgot about. And I'm going to go ahead and conclude the video for those of you who joined this episode strictly for the bowdrill cordage, but for those of you who are interested in the caveman steak that I'm going to cook in a while, feel free to stick around. Other than that, I appreciate you joining me on this episode, and I hope all of you are having an outstanding day or night, depending on where you're located, and I'll see all of you very soon on the next one. And now that I'm back in my usual camp here with all my resources, I got some more ambitious projects planned this year. Where I'm going to craft some items, primitive furniture, and I've got a primitive workbench with a vise, with a primitive vise, and other things that we're going to do this year as time goes on. It's kind of items that you would use in a long-term off-grid living scenario. So it should be a pretty interesting year. Anyways, guys, I appreciate it. If you're interested in the caveman steak, stick around. When these coals, I'm going to let this burn for a while. I'm actually going to shoot another video, and then later this fire will burn down, and to coals, and I'm gonna go ahead and cook it caveman style right on the coals. So anyways, take care guys. Bye bye.